Hey there, and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug Season 2 retrospective review, where we go through older episodes of Miraculous we never got around to making videos for and give our thoughts on everything. Our trip through Season 2 so far has been a bit of a revelation. I'd forgotten how many classic episodes were in this season. They were cooking in those days, I tell you what. Anyway though, with all that being said, there's nothing else for it but to jump straight into the episode. We start off with a news report of a bunch of animals having escaped from Paris Zoo. I originally thought that this was going to be revealed to have been the work of some akumatized villain, but seeing as Gabe is getting ready to akumatize Ondine not long after this, to me the implication is that the animals have simply escaped. It's not even one or two animals either. We see gorillas, panthers, a giraffe, and an elephant. That's a whole lot of different enclosures that somebody somehow opened. Somebody is getting arrested or fired, or there is surely going to be a public inquiry. Because realistically, somebody has been mauled to death by this stage. Also, my god, those are some big gorillas. I know that silverbacks are big and all, but that is next level. The heroes have assembled to try to get them back to the zoo, but I have to say, bad luck for any property or human damage caused by these animals, right? I don't think Ladybug's going to be able to reverse it all. We then cut over to local idiot Kim, who's at his swimming class with Ondine, where he daydreams to her about how awesome it would be to be a superhero. We see that against all odds, despite being a massive idiot and honestly kind of a douchebag, somehow Kim has managed to get Ondine to develop romantic feelings for him. Instead of outright telling him though, she decides that the smart play is to be all cutesy and put her secret on a piece of paper inside some diving ring thing. Of course Kim does read it, but as he himself says, that boy is clueless. I will admit that when he's just a harmless himbo like this, he is very funny. Same thing for when he tells her that his secret is that he can put his big toe inside his ear. And so from that point of view, I can see why she's falling for this dude. After all, around her, he's just goofy and silly, if a bit stupid. There isn't really any of that toxicity that he can display when he's at school. She decides to stop beating around the bush and writes that she straight up has a crush on this guy. Just as he's about to read it though, his alarm goes off which tells him he needs to get to the movies. On top of that, he tells us that he's invited Chloe, who has already by this point harshly humiliated him before when he expressed any romantic interest in her. Can't see how this could possibly go wrong for him. Of course, being heartbroken, Ondine makes the perfect target for Gabe to akumatize, and he sends it off straight away, which has got to be some sort of record. What, are we a minute into this episode at this point? Before we see the transformation though, first we got to check back in with the superheroes. They managed to finish trapping all of the animals, although conveniently they got rid of all the big ones off screen, and thus the writers only have to show us that they can trick the panthers into the back of a van. The three heroes celebrate together on the roof, but Rena's charm is about to deactivate. Thus, she and Ladybug have to leave so Rena can give the Miraculous back and keep her secrecy intact. Of course, Cat Noir's starting to chafe a little bit at being kept in the dark, and he doesn't feel like an equal partner here anymore. He feels like things are being intentionally kept from him, which is kind of true, and he's left pretty pissed off. I feel like this is the origin story for the fandom being ultra protective of Cat Noir and feeling unsatisfied about the direction his story's taking. They openly address it here in this episode, and they make it part of the story that it doesn't seem fair. But then they keep doing it again and again, especially in seasons 3 and 4, whilst the way the narrative treats it also begins to change and shift. Instead of it being treated with understanding like in this episode, eventually he's written to be irrational and petulant. Here's where it all begins though. In some random back alleyway, Alia detransforms and hands over a Miraculous, running off to go to the movies, whilst Marinette has to take an alternate way so she can get back to Master Fu to return the Miraculous, apologising to Tiki they're going to have to miss the trailers. To me, this is kind of goofy, because does nobody else find the ads and trailers before the movie the worst part of the experience by far? I always hated them when I was a kid, but now I swear they pack more and more onto the start every single year. There's nothing to apologise for here. She runs off to Master Fu's place whilst we finally catch up with Ondine, who's been transformed into Syren, with her tears quickly flooding the pool. I have to say, this has got to be one of the more embarrassing akumatizations. Imagine being an adult looking back on your life and realising you were possessed by a supervillain because of frickin' Kim. We cut over to the outside of the cinema where Kim arrives slightly late and asks Max, who is a real bro and has been waiting for him outside, whether Chloe's come. Of course, she hasn't, and Max blasts him with a good zinger here too. I mean, what was he thinking? Especially considering that they reveal that the movie they're going to see is called Mecha Monkey vs. Cyber Shark 3. That does not seem like a film that Chloe would ever want to see. And I have to say, I'm pretty impressed the creators of that franchise in-universe were somehow able to think of how to get Mecha Monkey to fight Cyber Shark across 3 separate films. How do they avoid the plot getting too samey? Or is this one of those franchises where nobody gives a damn about the story, they're just here to see Mecha Monkey fight a big robotic shark thing? Damn. Now I kind of want this franchise to be real. I guess Godzilla vs. Kong exists, but this looks way goofier and campier than that movie ever was. Alia then arrives at the cinema and she takes over for Max waiting outside as Marinette hasn't turned up yet. It's going to be a while that she's waiting out there because Marinette and Master Fu have a pretty long conversation. He notices that after she returns the Miraculous that something's bothering her, and so he invites her into a back room before he scolds the Kwamis for trying to follow him in because they're not allowed to know the secret recipe to modify their powers. They have their little discussion whilst Fu develops the concoction that, rather conveniently considering the episode, is required to give Ladybug aquatic powers. Also, side note, I have to wonder, how the hell does Marinette do this when she's the Guardian? Does she also have all these random ingredients at home? Oh sure, I just casually have a bunch of oyster pearls lying around that I'm willing to grind up into a magic potion. Sucks to suck for Fu though, because he actually uses a pearl in this recipe, and then he gets it wrong and so it doesn't work and so it's all ruined. Man, I hope he actually gets a lot of business for his massage parlor or whatever it is that he does to earn money, because it seems rather expensive being the guardian of the box. Marinette also tries to convince Fu to let Adrien in on some of the secrets they're talking about, but Fu brushes her off with an analogy about how you don't put noodles in the pot until the water's boiled. AKA, he ain't ready yet, which seems a bit harsh. Why'd you pick him in the first place if you were just going to leave him in the dark on everything that's going on? Honestly, when you look at it, I think he probably should have been a way more hands-on mentor for this early phase of their heroism. I mean, after all, they're trying to capture a proper supervillain. The first one in ages. You'd think he'd want to personally coach them through what their powers do and what to expect, right? Meanwhile, we see the waters continuing to rise from all of Syren's tears. My god. This is another one of those instances where I just have to have a good laugh about how bad the animation could be back in these days. I can't believe there are still people that try to say that this is somehow better than the visuals you have in Season 6. There really is no comparison to me. As we see Marinette trying to get Master Fu to include Adrien, we cut over to the man in question who's laying on his couch and playing with toys of Ladybug and Cat Noir. At first I found it a bit strange to think that he'd have action figures of the heroes to begin with, but then I started thinking, if I was a superhero and they made action figures of me, I'd also be super excited to buy one. That being said though, I hope that he's getting a cut of this merch money. In the end, don't you have the rights to your own image? I will admit I'm not fully versed in all of these types of laws or anything of the sort, but you'd think you would, right? Although the fact that they're superheroes would probably make it difficult to actually cash in on that sort of thing, wouldn't it? It's not like you can open a bank account under the name Ladybug or Cat Noir. Adrien very quickly realizes that Plagg likely knows whatever it is that Ladybug knows, and we have a very funny scene where Adrien tries to bribe him with cheese, but Plagg holds firm and goes to sniff Adrien's dirty socks because they smell just as good as cheese and will help him resist temptation. It is a very funny scene, but it's also really sad because it sort of shows that even Plagg doesn't think he's ready for the secret. After all, remember, it was Tiki that brought Marinette to Master Fu when they found the book because she knew it was time to reveal things. Plagg, however, clearly does not think that Adrien's water is boiled, to use Master Fu's analogy, which just makes me feel very sorry for him. It's back over to Marinette, who's managed to make her way to the cinema just in the nick of time for the start of the movie, which is pretty impressive. I guess that despite Fu apparently living in the opposite direction as the cinema, Marinette is a top-level sprinter. Either that or for some reason the gang decided to turn up at the movies way too early, or, in this world, they simply have a million years worth of ads and trailers that play before the movie begins. And that would be a true dystopian society, wouldn't it? Jeez. It's around this time that everybody notices the huge flood that's consuming Paris that 100% killed a lot of people. You see how high some of these cars are getting tossed by the big waves? Yeah. Heaps of people probably died horribly or drowned in this episode and were resurrected by Ladybug at the end. We see Adrien transform before we cut back over to the main action of the story. Paris is flooded, but Marinette and her friends get to the roof of the cinema all safe and sound. And what does Kim immediately do? He just jumps straight into the water for some reason. There's no thinking about it, no acknowledgement that the water is very deep. He just leaps into it and encourages his friends to do the same. This is how you win a Darwin Award. He ends up getting snatched by Syren and dragged under the water, whilst Marinette sneaks into a bin and tries to paddle away from everybody. Imagine being her friend. A villain appears, you turn around and your best friend is seemingly trying to escape and leave you to die. Marinette gets far enough away to turn into Ladybug and goes for a swim, and almost gets eaten by a very big fish. And where the hell did this thing even come from? Is the flood not simply all of Syren's tears that filled up the pool and then kept going? How the hell did the sea creatures turn up? Can't have all been in the river. Did these bad boys bust out of the Paris aquarium or something? Syren gives Kim the ability to breathe underwater and wants to show him all around her new underwater kingdom, but of course, Ladybug has something to say about that. Well, not really anything to say because she is underwater and can't breathe at all, but hey, she tries her best and ends up getting wrecked by Syren because she has the massive disadvantage. Cat Noir swoops in and saves her from getting hurt after a long fall after Syren launches her out of the water, although I guess she really wouldn't have been hurt anyway considering the Miraculouses make them invulnerable. We get more of that drama with Cat Noir feeling left out when Ladybug uses her lucky charm and realizes that it's a hint to go and see Fu. And so she does, whilst Cat Noir is forced to stay behind and wait and sulk. Marinette goes to see Fu, who's made his way to the roof of the building, where he continues to go over the recipe book to try to find the answer to unlocking the water powers. By the way, given how populated Paris is, you'd think the majority of the roofs would have people on them, wouldn't you? The fact that it's almost completely deserted everywhere would indicate that everyone in Paris is pretty much dead. Yikes. And yes, I know the actual answer is because they don't want to spend time on that, but let me have my fun. She arrives and Fu's still stumped as to what the tear of joy may be referring to. Since, as we've kind of established, he's pretty bad at his job and honestly a little bit stupid, apparently he's not actually bothered to try getting a tear of joy. Come on, Fu. Gotta be better than that. Thus, it falls to Marinette to save the day. She tells some honestly pretty shitty jokes that apparently Fu finds so funny as to be moved to tears of laughter. These are the jokes that she tells in the English dub, by the way. Why do we go to bed at night? Because the bed won't come to you. Ah ha ha ha! What goes up but doesn't move? Stairs. Ha ha ha! What does a snail say when it's riding on a turtle's back? Woohoo! Ugh. These somehow get him to laugh so hard that he cries, which makes me very sad for him. Do you think he has any friends besides Waze? Turns out the tear was the obvious answer, and it completes the potion which allows Tiki to turn into Aqua Tiki, which in turn allows Marinette to transform into Aqua Bug. Off she goes to battle, but not before she tells Fu that maybe it's time to put the noodles in the water. We cut over to Adrien, who powers down and almost renounces his Miraculous, which gives us a very cute little scene where Plagg makes sure he knows how much he means to him. I will say that this was a very sweet little sequence. I do love when Plagg gets his chances to be more than just simple comic relief. The moment doesn't last too long though, because Fu turns up and introduces himself to Adrien and gives him the magic potion, which allows Plagg to turn into Aqua Plagg, I guess. Unlike Ladybug, we didn't get to see Cat Noir transform here, which was a bit of a shame to tell you the truth. Over at the swimming complex, Syren tells Kim that with one kiss, he'll be able to properly breathe underwater and become her Prince of the Sea. Honestly, aside from the horrible deaths of much of the Paris population, she doesn't seem so bad. I'm surprised Hawkeye isn't going nuts over voice chat trying to get her to go out and hunt for Ladybug and Cat Noir. I mean, imagine if she'd been hunting them this whole time. Imagine if she'd managed to get the drop on Cat Noir when he took off his ring. It would have been all over. Anyway, Kim's himbo vibes in this scene are off the charts, and it's actually making him seem very funny. Am I starting to like Kim? Ugh. He asks if kissing her and becoming the prince would mean he never gets to watch Mecha Monkey vs Cyber Shark 3, and I'm glad that after all of this he still has his priorities straight. Ladybug and Cat Noir arrive and they fight a little bit, but despite their power-up, it's pretty clear they're still no match. Whilst Cat Noir briefly faces her alone, Ladybug talks to Kim and figures out where the Akuma is, before taking Kim and leading Syren on a chase, where she leads her through a submerged car. She quickly locks her inside it, Cat Noir smacks it to activate the airbags, and she cops the full blast. Ouch. They then hoist the car onto the roof, drain the water, and cleanse the Akuma before of course reversing everything. Sometimes the way they capture villains in these episodes, especially when the villain is more powerful than them, comes across as plot-armored BS, but this actually felt very clever. Very well written in my eyes. I did notice in the shot where they released the Akuma from the bracelet though, I think they forgot to give it the purple glow. Oh man, the animation could be so hit or miss in these days, it's always funny to see. We then come into a compilation of scenes to wrap things up. We have Fu give Marinette the different potions with the different power-ups, which she then bakes for Tiki. And looking at all these different colours makes me a little bit salty. We've had so many episodes since then, and we've only ever seen the water, ice, and space powers. There's still 4 more colours available, what a tease! Kim then asks Ondine to the movies, only since Chloe's unavailable I would suspect, considering even by season 5 the dude's still pining after her. Fu then comes to Adrien's place pretending to be a substitute Chinese teacher, before giving him flavoured cheese that will give Plagg powers and seemingly explaining everything off screen, whilst Gabe seethes about how he's going to find the Guardian no matter what, setting up the beginning of the end for Master Fu. And that's where the episode ends. I think this is a pretty mixed bag episode for me. In terms of the story, it's a great one that pushes the characters and the narrative forward far more than most episodes do, and sets up the finale of Season 3. That being said though, at the same time, the underwater environment really helped to showcase how bad the visuals could be at times, and this episode was often rather hard to watch as a result. So it's good, but it could be better. It hasn't aged well. With all that being said though, these have just been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of Syren? Do you like it? Hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.